Count Vladislav Ardelian watched from the shadowed alcove of the Marchioness of Hartberry's ballroom as a woman in a borrowed dress slipped a letter from the hostess's writing desk into her sleeve. She did it beautifully, the kind of beautiful that had nothing to do with her face. The woman was Cecily Ashworth, though he doubted that was her real name. She had arrived 3 weeks ago in London society with a story about being the widowed cousin of a baronet from Suffolk. Vladislav had lived 400 years. He knew the architecture of a lie. What interested him was the target. That letter belonged to the Marchioness of Hartbury, who was also the treasurer of the Harker Foundation. The Harker Foundation kept records on certain families like his. Your Grace, may I present my daughter Arabella? The voice belonged to Lady Constance Pembroke, who had been circling him all evening the way moths circle lamps. She practically shoved a golden-haired young woman forward. Arabella Pembroke smiled with the precision of someone who had practiced before a mirror. Lady Constance, Vladislav said, how persistent you are. Arabella speaks 4 languages, Lady Constance said. Her grip on her daughter's elbow was firm enough to blanch the skin. She paints watercolors. She has been told she resembles a Botticelli. I can see that, Vladislav said. He looked past them both. The woman at the writing desk had vanished. The drawer was closed. The evidence was gone. Perhaps a dance? Lady Constance pressed. I didn't cross 4 centuries of solitude for a pretty face, Lady Constance. The words left him before diplomacy could intervene. He softened them with a half bow. Forgive me, I find myself unwell this evening. Lady Constance's smile hardened into something architectural. You will regret that discourtesy, Count Ardelian. London has a long memory. She steered Arabella away. Vladislav barely noticed. He was already moving through the crowd toward the garden doors, following a scent of ink, lavender soap, and someone else's secrets. He found her in the garden, leaning against the stone balustrade. She was reading the stolen letter by moonlight, her lips moving as she counted something. 7, she said aloud. 7 families. That number includes mine, Vladislav said from the darkness. She did not scream. She did not drop the letter. She folded it back along its creases with steady hands and turned to face him. Her eyes were dark, assessing, and entirely unafraid. You must be Count Ardelian, she said. I was told you rarely attend these gatherings. And you must be someone other than the widow Ashworth from Suffolk. He stepped into the moonlight. Suffolk widows don't usually rifle through private correspondence. Suffolk widows don't usually need to, she said. I find London forces certain adaptations. She was perhaps 30, with sharp features and ink-stained fingers she had tried to scrub clean. She wore the dress poorly, not because it didn't suit her, but because she wore it like armor rather than adornment. A woman who had once owned better gowns. You counted 7 families on that list, he said. You said the number aloud. A peculiar habit. Counting keeps me honest, she said. There are 4 lies I've told tonight. 3 people watching us from that terrace, and 1 man standing too close to me in a dark garden. He stepped back. Not because she asked, because he wanted her to know he would. What do you want with that list? He asked. What do you want with me? She replied. The silence between them filled with the sound of distant violins and the rustling of laurel hedges. Vladislav realized he did not know the answer to her question. He had followed her because she was interesting. He had stayed because she was unafraid. Neither reason was sufficient for a man who had spent centuries being sufficient. My name is Cecily Graves, she said, not Ashworth, the Graves family of Wiltshire. Perhaps you've heard of us. He had. The Graves family had been prominent until 5 years ago, when a financial scandal involving forged railway bonds had destroyed the patriarch. The family lost everything. The father had been found dead in his study. No one had inquired deeply into the daughter's whereabouts since. You lost your fortune, he said. I lost my father, my home, and every acquaintance who had ever called me friend, Cecily said. She tucked the letter into her sleeve. The fortune was merely the mechanism. Shall I tell you who destroyed us, or would you prefer to guess? The Marchioness of Hartbury, Vladislav said. Cecily's eyebrows rose. 3 points to the mysterious Count. She manages the Harker Foundation, he said. The foundation investigates families with unusual longevity. Your father's railway bonds were legitimate. I suspect the forgeries were manufactured to discredit him after he discovered something the foundation wanted hidden. 12 documents, Cecily said quietly. 12 forged bonds that appeared in our family vault with ink that was 6 months old on paper that was 3 years old. I counted every one. A door opened on the terrace above. Music spilled out. Vladislav heard Lady Constance's voice, sharp as cut glass, saying his name. You should go, Cecily said. Lady Constance is not the kind of enemy you want. I have older enemies, Vladislav said. Meet me tomorrow, the reading room at the British Museum, 2 o'clock. Why should I trust you? Because I'm on that list too, he said, and I want to know why. Cecily studied him for 3 heartbeats. He counted them. Her pulse was elevated but steady, fear and curiosity in equal measure. 2 o'clock, she said, and walked back into the light. The British Museum reading room smelled of old leather and ambition. Cecily arrived at 10 minutes to 2, because punctuality was a weapon and early arrival was ammunition. She chose a table near the window where she could see every entrance. Vladislav appeared at precisely 2. She had not seen him enter. One moment the chair across from her was empty. The next, he occupied it as though he had always been there. You move quietly for such a tall man, she said. And you arrived early, he replied, to choose the tactical position. 5 exits in this room, she said. I like to know where they are. He placed a leather folio on the table between them. Inside were documents she recognized: foundation correspondence, financial records, a list of names annotated in the Marchioness's unmistakable copperplate hand. Where did you get these? Cecily asked. I have been collecting evidence against the Harker Foundation for 11 years, he said. They investigate families they consider anomalous. Families with members who live too long, who heal too quickly, who avoid sunlight. Cecily looked at him, really looked. His skin was pale in a way that suggested not illness, but absence of something ordinary. His eyes held the particular weariness of someone who had been awake for far too long. What are you? She said. Hungry at the moment, he said. I haven't eaten today. You haven't eaten in longer than today, she said. Your collar is loose. Your cuffs were taken in recently. You're losing weight you cannot afford to lose. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, perhaps, or the particular discomfort of being seen. A librarian passed their table. They fell silent until her footsteps faded. The foundation destroyed my father to prevent him from publishing what he'd found, Cecily said. Railway surveys that showed a network of underground chambers beneath 6 estates in England, all owned by families on that list. Your father was a surveyor? My father was a railway investor who read his own survey reports. Most investors don't. He counted the anomalies: 23 chambers, 14 with signs of habitation, 6 with records going back 300 years. Vladislav closed the folio. And the Marchioness decided that was dangerous. The Marchioness decided my father was disposable, Cecily said. She heard the edge in her own voice and did not soften it. So yes, Count Ardelian, I infiltrated London society to steal evidence. I lied about my name. I borrowed a dead woman's dress. And I will do considerably worse before I am finished. I believe you, he said. But I should tell you that the person who sent you to London did not send you to find justice. Cecily's hands went still on the table. I beg your pardon? Mr. Harcourt Leighton, Vladislav said. Solicitor, formerly of Lincoln's Inn. He approached you 8 months ago with a proposition. He would fund your return to London society if you gathered information on certain families. He told you it would help clear your father's name. The accuracy of this struck her like cold water. How do you know about Leighton? Because Leighton works for the foundation, Vladislav said. He always has. The reading room seemed to contract around her. She counted the books on the nearest shelf. 14. She counted the people at adjacent tables. 6. The counting steadied her enough to speak. You're saying I was sent to spy for the very people who destroyed my family. I'm saying you were sent to identify which families might be vulnerable. Your reports go to Leighton. Leighton's reports go to the Marchioness. Cecily stood. Her chair scraped against the floor. She picked up her gloves and began pulling them on with mechanical precision. Where are you going? Vladislav asked. To have a conversation with Mr. Leighton about the nature of employment. Cecily. It was the first time he had used her given name. It stopped her. Leighton is bait. If you confront him, the Marchioness will know you've been compromised. You'll lose the only advantage you have. And what advantage is that? They don't know you've met me. She stood there, gloves half-buttoned, fury and calculation warring behind her eyes. Then she sat back down. Tell me what you are, she said. All of it. I am finished with partial truths. Not here, he said. Tomorrow evening. My house in Grosvenor Square. Come at dusk. 9 lies you've told me, she said. I'm keeping count. I've told you no lies, he said. That's the most dangerous kind of dishonesty, she said, telling the truth and leaving out the important parts. She came at dusk, as he had asked. The house on Grosvenor Square was beautiful in the way that museums are beautiful, carefully maintained, impeccably arranged, and fundamentally unlived in. Vladislav met her in the library. Every curtain was drawn. The room was lit by candles that cast shadows too steady for natural flame. You don't have servants, Cecily observed. 11 rooms I can see from the foyer. Not a single footstep but yours and mine. I value privacy. You value concealment, she corrected. Those are different things. He poured her tea from a service that looked genuinely old. Not antique old, old in the way of objects that had been used continuously for a very long time. She noticed he poured nothing for himself. I am going to tell you something, he said, and you will want to leave. I ask only that you hear everything before you go. 14 seconds, she said. That's how long I'll give you before I decide. I was born in 1453, he said, in a country that no longer exists under the name I knew. I have lived through the fall of Constantinople, the discovery of the New World, and every war since. I do not age. I do not eat what you eat. The Foundation calls my kind by the word your Gothic novels prefer. Cecily set down her teacup. It did not rattle. Vampire, she said. Yes. That's why you don't eat, why the curtains are drawn, why no servants. She counted on her fingers. Why your skin is cold. I shook your hand yesterday. I noticed. Most people don't. Most people don't count things, she said. It makes you attentive to details. So, you drink blood. From animals, occasionally from willing donors who understand what they offer. And the Foundation hunts people like you. The Foundation catalogs us, monitors us, and when we become inconvenient, eliminates us. He paused. Not with stakes and crosses, with scandal, financial ruin, institutional commitment, the weapons of polite society. The same weapons they used against my father, Cecily said, precisely the same. She stood and walked to the window. She parted the curtain 1 inch. Street lamps burned outside. London carried on, oblivious. 16, she said. 16 what? 16 reasons I should walk out this door, and 1 reason I shouldn't. She turned to face him. You're the only person in 5 years who has told me the truth, even if the truth is impossible. Over the following weeks, they built something fragile between them. Not trust. Trust was too clean a word. They built a working arrangement edged with something warmer. Cecily continued attending society events, gathering intelligence. But now her reports to Leighton contained carefully curated falsehoods. Vladislav helped her construct them. Plausible enough to satisfy, useless enough to protect. She came to Grosvenor Square each Tuesday and Thursday evening. They worked through Foundation documents together. She organized, he translated. She counted discrepancies. He explained the centuries behind them. 23 families on the original list, she said one evening, her fingers smudged with ink. 14 still active. 6 destroyed by the Foundation in the last decade. 3 vanished. The 3 who vanished chose to disappear, Vladislav said. I helped 2 of them. And the third? The third was my closest friend. He did not vanish by choice. His voice held the particular flatness of old grief. The Foundation arranged for him to be committed to an asylum. He remains there. Cecily's pen stopped moving. Which asylum? Bethlehem. Then we add that to the list, she said. 24 wrongs, not 23. He looked at her across the candlelit table. She felt his gaze like a change in temperature. Something in the room shifted. Not the air, not the light. Something between them. You are remarkable, he said. I am angry, she said. Remarkable is what people call women when they mean inconvenient. He laughed. She realized she had never heard him laugh before. It sounded like a door opening in a house that had been closed for a very long time. Then, on a cold Thursday in November, the arrangement shattered. Cecily arrived at Grosvenor Square to find the front door unlocked. Inside, Vladislav stood in the foyer holding a letter. His face held no expression at all. In 400 years he had learned to empty his features like draining water from a glass. This arrived an hour ago, he said. From Mr. Layton. He held it out. Cecily took it and read. The letter was addressed to the Marchioness of Hartbury. It was a report. A detailed, accurate report on Count Vladislav Ardelian's household, his habits, his schedule, his vulnerabilities. It described his aversion to sunlight, his lack of servants, the location of his private library. At the bottom, in Layton's hand, gathered by our operative, who has secured regular access to the subject's residence. This is my handwriting, Cecily said, staring at the body of the report. Because it was. She recognized her own phrasing, her own observations, rearranged and reframed. These are from my early notes. Before I knew about you. Before I knew about any of it. Before you knew, Vladislav repeated. Or before you decided to change sides. Before I knew Layton worked for the Foundation. Those notes were in my lodgings. He must have copied them. Must have, Vladislav said. You don't believe me. I believe you entered my life under false pretenses. I believe you catalogued my home, my habits, and my weaknesses. I believe you sent reports to a man who serves my enemies. Everything else is interpretation. Vladislav, do not. The word dropped like a stone into still water. You have been counting lies since we met. Count mine. I have told you 0. Now count yours. She opened her mouth, closed it. He was right. The number was not small. I need you to leave, he said, and I need you not to return. If I leave, you lose the only person who can read the Foundation's financial records. I know their accounting methods. I survived 4 centuries without your help. I will survive the next 4. Cecily gathered her coat. At the door, she turned. 24 wrongs, she said, including what they did to your friend. If you let pride stop you from fighting them, that number never changes. It was not pride that made me trust you, he said. And it is not pride that makes me stop. She walked into the November dark. The door closed behind her. She counted her steps to the corner. 47. Each one heavier than the last. The separation lasted 3 weeks. They felt like months. Cecily confronted Layton at his offices in Lincoln's Inn. The solicitor was a thin man with the particular confidence of someone who believes himself cleverer than everyone in the room. You copied my private notes, she said. I safeguarded the Foundation's investment, Layton said. You were placed in a position of access. Your observations are the Foundation's property. My observations were stolen from my lodgings. Your lodgings are paid for by the Foundation, as are your dresses, your invitations, your entire existence in London. £37, if you'd like the exact figure. £37, she repeated. That's what my cooperation is worth. That's what your silence is worth, Leighton said. Your cooperation is worth considerably more. The Marchioness has a new assignment for you. Count Ardalian's estate in Romania. Documents in his private vault. We need an inventory. And if I refuse? Leighton opened a drawer and placed a document on the desk. It was a commitment order for Bethlehem Royal Hospital. The patient's name was blank. The authorizing signatures were already in place. The Foundation has committed inconvenient people before, he said. One more would hardly be noticed. Cecily looked at the document. She counted the signatures. 3. 3 people willing to declare her insane on the Foundation's word. I see, she said, and left. Across London, Vladislav sat in his empty library and did not read. The candles burned at their supernatural steadiness. The documents lay where Cecily had organized them, her marginal notes still visible in her precise, counted hand. He had been alone before, for decades at a time. Solitude was familiar. This was different. This was solitude with a Cecily-shaped absence in it. His mentor, the elder vampire Constantine, visited on the second week. Constantine was ancient even by their standards, with the particular gentleness of someone who had outlived anger. You sent her away, Constantine said. She betrayed my trust. She was used as a weapon against you by people who used her own grief as the handle. That is not the same as betrayal. The result is identical. The result, Constantine said, is that you are alone in a dark house, refusing to eat, surrounded by her handwriting. Is this the result you wanted? Vladislav said nothing. Constantine placed a hand on his shoulder. The old vampire's touch was cool but steady. 4 centuries, Constantine said. I have watched you close every door that someone tried to open. This one you should leave ajar. The escalation came on a Tuesday. Cecily received 2 communications simultaneously. The first was a notice from her landlord. Her rent, paid by the Foundation, had been withdrawn. She had 7 days to vacate. The second was a society column in the Morning Post. An anonymous source had identified the woman calling herself Cecily Ashworth as, in fact, Cecily Graves, daughter of the disgraced forger Edward Graves. The column suggested she had been operating a confidence scheme among the aristocracy. By Wednesday, every door that had opened for her in London closed. Invitations were rescinded. The borrowed dresses were demanded back. Lady Constance Pembroke, who had been humiliated by Vladislav's rejection at the Hartbury ball, made certain the story spread to every drawing room in Mayfair. The Graves girl, Lady Constance told anyone who would listen. I knew the moment I saw her. Bad blood will out. She was trying to ensnare Count Ardalian. I warned him myself. But the Marchioness was not finished. On Thursday, a legal notice arrived at Grosvenor Square. The Harker Foundation had filed a petition with the Court of Chancery to seize Count Ardalian's London properties. The basis: irregularities in his land titles dating back 200 years. Titles that could not withstand scrutiny because the original owner and the current owner were, impossibly, the same person. Vladislav read the petition in his library. The evidence was meticulous. Someone had provided the Foundation with detailed records of his property chain, records that could only have come from his private documents, from Cecily's early notes. The realization arrived with the weight of something inevitable. The Foundation had not merely used Cecily, they had built their entire legal assault from the intelligence she had gathered before she knew what she was gathering, and now they were destroying both of them with it. She came to his door on a Friday evening. She did not knock. She stood on the step in a plain dress, unadorned, carrying a leather satchel. No borrowed identity, no manufactured smile. Just herself, and whatever remained of her nerve. Vladislav opened the door. He looked at her for a long time. I am not here to apologize, Cecily said. I am here because the Foundation filed a chancery petition against you using information I gathered, and I am the only person who can prove that information was obtained through fraud and coercion. You could have sent a letter. Letters can be intercepted. Leighton taught me that. 6 of mine were copied before I realized. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't, she said. You should verify everything I give you independently. You should assume I might still be compromised. And you should let me in anyway, because the alternative is losing your home, your identity, and every family you've been protecting. He stepped aside. She entered. The house smelled the same: candle wax and old books, and the particular absence of cooking smells that marked a home without human appetites. They sat across from each other at the library table. The space between them felt wider than the wood. Conditions, he said. Name them. You show me every document before anyone else sees it. You make no independent contact with Leighton, and you do not lie to me again, about anything, including the number of lies you are counting. 41, she said immediately. Since we met, 41 lies I've told you. I've kept track. The light behind his eyes cracked. Not forgiveness, something more tentative. Acknowledgement, perhaps, that a woman who counted her own deceptions might be worth a careful second chance. What's in the satchel? He asked. Leighton's personal ledger, she said. I took it from his office when he wasn't looking. It records every payment the Foundation has made to falsify evidence against targeted families, including mine, including yours. How did you get it? I told his clerk I was there to deliver documents, which was technically true. I delivered my resignation letter while the clerk was reading it. The ledger was in an unlocked drawer, 11 seconds. You counted. I always count. They worked through the night. The ledger was devastating. It recorded payments to forgers, to magistrates, to asylum physicians. It recorded the exact sums spent to destroy the Graves family. £43 to manufacture the forged bonds, £12 to bribe the investigating officer, £90 to ensure the coroner ruled Edward Graves's death unremarkable. Cecily read her father's entry with dry eyes and a steady voice. The grief was old. The anger was new. It sharpened her counting into something precise and purposeful. We need witnesses, she said. The ledger alone isn't enough. Courts require testimony. Constantine can testify to the Foundation's history, Vladislav said. He has dealt with them for 2 centuries. And I can testify to Leighton's methods. The coercion. The commitment threats. She paused. But we need someone inside their circle, someone they trust who can verify the ledger's authenticity. Lady Constance, Vladislav said. Cecily looked at him sharply. Lady Constance despises me. She despises you. She is currently conducting a personal campaign to destroy what remains of my reputation. Lady Constance's daughter Arabella was presented to me at the Hartbury Ball as a marriage prospect, Vladislav said. Lady Constance has been a Foundation associate for years. She identifies potential targets, families with eligible members who can be married into, investigated from within. She was going to marry Arabella to you, Cecily said, as a spy. Yes, and when I rejected the arrangement publicly, she became dangerous. But she also became vulnerable. If the Foundation's methods are exposed, her complicity is exposed with them. So we offer her a choice, Cecily said. Testify voluntarily and claim she was coerced, or be exposed alongside the Foundation. Precisely. Cecily looked at him across the table. The candles cast his features in gold and shadow. He was not handsome in the way the poets meant. He was handsome in the way that old cathedrals are handsome, enduring, built to bear weight. You're quite good at this, she said. I have had 4 centuries of practice being hunted. One develops strategies. 3, she said. 3 what? 3 times you've almost smiled tonight. I'm counting those too. The hearing took place at the Court of Chancery on a gray December morning. The courtroom smelled of damp wool and furniture polish. Every seat was occupied. Society had come to watch the Foundation destroy Count Ardelian. They would leave having witnessed something quite different. The Marchioness of Hartbury sat at the petitioner's table. She wore black silk and an expression of absolute certainty. Leighton sat beside her, arranging documents with the fussy precision of a man who had never lost a case. Lady Constance sat 3 rows back. She had been given her choice 2 days earlier. She had chosen self-preservation. Cecily was not surprised. She had counted on it. Vladislav sat at the respondent's table. Beside him sat Cecily, who was not his solicitor, not his wife, and not his employee. She was there as a witness, the most dangerous kind. The Foundation's barrister presented the property irregularities with practiced clarity. The land titles were inconsistent. The original owner and current owner appeared to be the same individual across 2 centuries. The implication was fraud. Cecily stood when called. She walked to the witness stand. The courtroom watched her the way audiences watch tightrope walkers. "I was recruited by Mr. Harcourt Leighton 8 months ago," she said. "I was told I would be gathering information to clear my father's name. Instead, my observations were used to build the very petition before this court." Leighton's face went pale. The Marchioness's expression did not change. That, Cecily noted, was more frightening. "I present to the court Mr. Leighton's personal ledger," Cecily continued. She opened the satchel and placed the book on the stand. "It records payments made by the Harker Foundation to falsify evidence against 23 families over the past decade, including the fabrication of forged railway bonds attributed to my father, Edward Graves." The courtroom stirred. The judge leaned forward. Leighton half rose from his chair. The Marchioness placed a hand on his arm. "Sit down." "This ledger is stolen property," the Foundation's barrister said immediately. "This ledger is evidence of criminal fraud," Cecily replied. £43 to forge bonds, £12 to bribe an officer, £90 to ensure a death went uninvestigated. I have counted every entry. There are 114. The judge examined the ledger. The courtroom waited. Cecily felt the silence press against her like water. She counted her own heartbeats, steady, present. "Lady Constance Pembroke," Cecily said, turning to the gallery. "Can you confirm that the Harker Foundation recruited you to identify families for surveillance through marriage arrangements?" Lady Constance stood. Her face was rigid with the effort of choosing between loyalty and survival. Survival won. It usually did. "The Foundation approached me 6 years ago," Lady Constance said. Her voice was stiff but clear. "I was asked to present my daughter to selected individuals. I was compensated for my cooperation." "And were you aware that the Foundation used fabricated evidence to destroy families who resisted their investigations?" "I was told the evidence was genuine." Lady Constance paused. "I now understand that it was not." The Marchioness of Hartbury rose. The courtroom turned to her. She stood like a woman who had never been contradicted and could not quite process the experience. "These allegations are preposterous," she said. "This woman is Cecily Graves, a known fraud. Her father was a convicted forger." "My father was never convicted," Cecily said. "He was accused, publicly destroyed, and driven to his death before any trial could occur. That was rather the point, wasn't it, Lady Hartbury? Conviction requires a courtroom. What you do requires only money and malice." The judge rapped his gavel. "I will review this ledger and the relevant property petitions. The Chancery petition against Count Ardelian's estates is stayed pending investigation. This court is adjourned." The Marchioness swept out. Leighton followed, carrying nothing. He had left the ledger behind. He had no choice. Lady Constance departed through a side door. She did not look at anyone. Cecily stepped down from the witness stand. Her hands were trembling. She counted the tremors. 7 per minute. Coming down. Vladislav was waiting in the corridor. He stood the way he always stood. Still, watchful, as though the air around him had agreed to behave. 114 entries, he said. "I counted them twice," she said. "You were extraordinary in there." "I was terrified in there," she said. "Extraordinary is what it looks like from the outside." They stood in the corridor, while barristers and spectators flowed around them. Neither moved. The space between them had narrowed over the past weeks, but it had not closed. Cecily understood that it might never fully close. Some distances are not crossed, they are inhabited. I should tell you something, Vladislav said, before another day passes with it unsaid. 5 things, Cecily said. You've been wanting to tell me 5 things. I can tell by the way you start sentences, and then fold your hands instead of finishing them. I'll start with the most important one. I didn't cross centuries of solitude for a pretty face, or a strategic alliance, or a weapon against the Foundation. I crossed them for this. He gestured at the space between them. For someone who counts my almost smiles, who tells me how many lies she's told, who makes me laugh in a house that hasn't heard laughter in decades. That's 3 things, she said, not one. They're all the same thing, he said. I love you, that's the one. She looked at him. The trembling in her hands had stopped. 41 lies I told you. You remember that number? I remember everything you've ever said to me. Then remember this, 0. That is the number of lies from this moment forward. 0 from me to you. About anything. Including the fact that I love you too. Which I have known for approximately 11 days and have been too angry at myself to admit. 11 days, he said, I counted. He reached for her hand. His fingers were cool. Hers were warm. The contrast felt like a question and an answer spoken simultaneously. I am immortal, he said. And you are not. That equation does not resolve. I don't need it to resolve, she said. I need it to be true. Every day it's true is a day that counts. He lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. His lips were cool and careful. She felt the kiss travel from her hand to her chest, to somewhere behind her eyes where she kept the things that mattered. They married in January, in a small ceremony at a chapel in Hampstead. Constantine served as witness. The chapel smelled of cold stone and winter roses. The vicar was elderly and kind, and did not remark on the groom's pallor. Cecily wore a dress that was hers. Not borrowed, not stolen. Purchased with the first payment from a publisher who had agreed to print her account of the Harker Foundation's activities, suitably anonymized. The advance was modest. The dress was plain. She had never owned anything that felt more truly hers. Vladislav wore a dark coat and an expression that Cecily counted as his 4th genuine smile. She told him so during the vows. He almost produced a 5th. I promise you honesty, she said, because they had written their own words. I promise you the count of every truth and every lie. I promise you the number of days I am given, however many or few. I promise you the centuries I have behind me, he said, and every evening I have ahead. I promise you an open door in a house that was closed too long. Constantine, watching from the front pew, dabbed his eyes with a handkerchief so old it might have been woven before the chapel was built. The Chancery investigation concluded in March. The Harker Foundation was found to have engaged in systematic fraud. The Marchioness of Hartbury lost her position, her social standing, and her access to the institutional power she had wielded like a scalpel. Leighton was disbarred. The forged bonds attributed to Edward Graves were officially declared fabrications. His name was cleared in the public record. Cecily read the judicial finding on a Tuesday afternoon. She counted the pages. 31. She counted the names cleared. 23 families. She counted the years her father had been dead, without justice. 5. She set the document down and let herself feel the weight of it. Then she went to find Vladislav, because grief carried alone weighs twice as much. He was in the library reading. He looked up when she entered. He always looked up when she entered, as though the room only properly began when she was in it. It's done, she said. How do you feel? Like a house after the scaffolding comes down, the same shape, but you can see it properly now. 2 years later, on a spring evening, Cecily sat in the garden of the Grosvenor Square house. She had planted jasmine along the south wall. It was blooming for the first time. The scent reached her before she saw the flowers, as jasmine always does. Vladislav came through the garden door carrying a letter. Not stolen, not forged, Simply delivered, in the ordinary way that letters arrive when no one is trying to destroy you. From Constantine, he said. His friend has been released from Bethlehem. The judicial review ordered it. 24 wrongs, Cecily said. Now 24 corrections. The count is even. He sat beside her on the stone bench. The evening light was fading. He could stay outside for these moments, the dusk hours, the in-between time when day conceded to night and the world grew soft enough for him to inhabit. "What number are we on?" he asked. 731, she said. Days? Days since you kissed my hand in a courthouse corridor. I've been counting. He took her hand. The same hand, cool fingers lacing through warm ones. The jasmine sent its fragrance into the darkening air. Somewhere inside the house, a candle caught and held. Its light reached the garden in a thin gold line, stretching across the flagstones to touch the bench where they sat. 732 tomorrow, he said. I know, she said, leaning into the steady, ancient architecture of his shoulder. I'll be counting.